Yeah.
Okay, so David Chaum and DigiCash, that's kind of the first crypto, I would say. He he's the one who actually created something called blind signature technology, and it was designed to ensure the complete privacy of users who conducted online transactions. Now, Bitcoin isn't 100% private. You know, you can look; it's a public ledger, so you can go back and look at every single transaction that's ever occurred. However, you don't know necessarily know the wallets that's used. You know what I mean? So this
Right.
idea was seen as something that would be necessary with the internet because it was really like privacy in mind, and that's still a big debate today because Facebook's real centralized. They take your data. You don't necessarily have control of your data, and that centralization doesn't. There's not a lot of privacy today, and that was something that was thought of back in '82 by this guy.
Yeah.
So like I'm saying, even at the beginning stages of the internet, the idea of private anonymous transactions was thought about, and was those ideas were actually put on paper and thought about. And I think that's pretty cool that back in the '80s they saw what could come from the internet, which I think that takes a lot of foresight.
Yeah, they saw its potential applications and, you know,
Yeah,
how valuable it would be.
yeah, and it kind of reminds me of um, at work. I worked with someone that was a little older, and she remembered when were no computers whatsoever, and she remembers her boss telling her, "Hey, you do know one day all this paper, all these folders, all these files will be on that computer that you're using right now to do these basic things." Actually, she didn't have a computer yet. She was she was using film to take pictures of the files to make copies of them, and that was their way of making hard copies of the data. And
Right.
he said in the future you won't be doing that. There will be no paper. You'll be accessing the files through a screen, and you'll be able to see all these things. So, and that was back in the '70s that her boss said that.
Wow.
So a lot of people, I guess sometimes I forget that there's people who have foresight into these things that I take for granted today. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It and it's hard for us to imagine being able to see that far ahead into the future, but
Right, exactly,
sure.
and
I guess you could say. I mean, to us, Bitcoin would be something similar to that, to where
right that
we're saying now it's going to be great, and in the future we'll be looking back on now.
yeah, we'll see, and that cryptocurrencies in general too, like Ethereum and all the other
Yeah.
ones that offer
Yeah.
something is definitely going to come of that. It's going to be a big thing, and I think we all saw that coming too with smartphones. I think that was another big one. There was the internet that was huge and desktops and all that stuff, but then there was the smartphones was an even more deep materialization of software, more software, more readily available. I remember like thinking, why do we have app stores? We just do websites. Do you remember that? Like when we had the app store thing, I was like, why are we even using this? Well, we just have websites. Why do we have to do all this?
Yeah, I remember thinking it was weird and yeah, not understanding it.
But now that I use it and like I see like why it's so useful, it just makes things simpler to use. But anyways, DigiCash was formed as sort of an implementation of those ideas that David Chaum came up with in 1982, and that was created in 1989. So users could send money through encryption, and banks wouldn't be able to trace the money. So it was essentially replicating like paper cash transactions as digital transactions. So you could think of it as a more private PayPal. So it wasn't a
Okay.
Bitcoin totally decentralized. It was a company doing it. But like once you got your physical cash on rails with DigiCash, then it was no longer associated with your bank. Does that make sense?
I think, yeah.
Just imagine it this way. Imagine if whenever you put stuff into PayPal, it's not associated with your account or anything like that. It's just like you could send cash to people and nobody knows except for the person you sent it to who it was sent from.
Okay.
So it was again taking that privacy concept. It wasn't necessarily though like a whole new cryptocurrency. It was just a digital idea of money. You know, does that make sense? So it's sort of taking not working as a bank. PayPal works more like a bank, you know, because it's centralized. They can turn off folks. So it was more like a digital form, a more digital form of dollars. So
That
it wasn't,
makes sense.
yeah, it wasn't trying to compete with dollars or anything. But they thought that that would be more impressive, or not impressive, but maybe the future more so than credit cards and stuff like that. Turns out we went the credit card route, and PayPal kind of took advantage of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought this was kind of interesting too. I actually found that Microsoft wanted to incorporate this idea into Windows 95. They actually made $100 million offer to buy DigiCash, but that was declined. So Microsoft, the huge company, actually it'd be kind of weird if they had gotten into it. If they would have bought DigiCash and implemented it into Windows, that might have taken off more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
It just didn't take off because, like I said, people prefer to use credit cards. PayPal is sort of this idea, but it's a more centralized approach that people entrusted more, as it turns out, because PayPal is great because it kind of obfuscates the credit card. So you put your credit card on there, you can buy stuff. The person you're buying stuff from has no idea what your credit card is. You know what I mean?
You don't have to worry about the security issues.
Right. You just have to trust PayPal. You don't have to trust everybody else.
Right.
So that's more what the internet turned into than DigiCash, but it used cryptography and it was kind of laying the groundwork. Now here's another concept that was created in 1996. What they did was a little bit more like a cryptocurrency, in my opinion, or at the very least, it was like crypto gold, literally. They bought gold and kept gold in a vault, and they released shares of this gold essentially, and you could buy as much of it as you wanted to, and then you could send it to people and use it as a digital means of exchange, and then you could cash it out and retrieve your money in a bank. So it was sort of like it was almost like a centralized crypto exchange in a sense, but it wasn't crypto in the purest sense because you couldn't send it to a wallet and all that good stuff, but you could buy shares of gold, send that to other places, and if the gold appreciated, your value also appreciated.
Let's see.
So it was replicating the gold standard of the past, and fortunately, eventually the government shut it down due to terrorist concerns in 2001 due to the Patriot Act. So that didn't
What's
work out
the
so
well, what's the terrorist concerns? I'm not.
well.
What does that mean?
Folks from the eGold were, some of them, not all of them, but some of them used it to buy shady stuff, criminal
Oh,
stuff.
okay. I see.
But that happened with Bitcoin too. And it still does. At the start of Bitcoin, I don't know if you knew about this. It was called the Silk Road. Um,
I haven't heard of that.
so the Silk Road, I believe, started in 2012, or it might have been 2011. 2010 or 2011, one of those years. It might have been 2010 as early as that. I can't remember the exact year. But what that was the first exchange set up purely for Bitcoin. So it was definitely after the pizza event. So we'll just say it was 2011. I don't know the exact year. But, anyways, what happened there is people could set up, it worked almost like an eBay for Bitcoin. So you could say, hey, I got this for sale. You send me X Bitcoin, and then they could send you the Bitcoin, and then you get something in return. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing that was shady about it is a lot of people are using it for drugs and other illegal things.
Oh, Silk Road. Are you talking about that like dark web? site?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
So eGold went through a similar thing, and the government shut it down, took all the gold, and I don't know if they refunded any of the people who were using it legitimately, but they arrested the owner and threw him in jail.
Let's see.
I don't think that's right because I mean, how can why would the owner get arrested? It's not like he was the one trading with the people, you know?
Yeah, I mean, unless he was somehow involved with it. I don't know the story, but
Right? Yeah, I guess I don't know the full story, but if he wasn't involved with it and he just happened to run the website, that seems kind of crazy. Because to me, then
yeah,
PayPal should be held accountable because I know there's
right.
PayPal transactions that happen for drugs and stuff that happens.
Oh yeah, sure it happens.
I mean, that's probably not the smartest idea, but people do that, and people use eBay for shit like that too.
Yeah,
They'll say it's something, and people know this. You can find transactions on eBay that are really shady, like stuff that's not worth a lot for some reason selling for a ton. That makes no sense. That I feel like are probably people either laundering money or possibly buying something else under the idea that it's something else. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's I don't maybe he was a part of it. I don't know, but the people who used it legitimately, I don't know if they got compensated. But there's
And this was
actually
back in. Go ahead.
sorry, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was gonna say this was back in like 2001, so it could just been they didn't fully understand like the internet and all that.
That's true. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it was kind of a cool concept. They were trying to bring back hard money, but it just doesn't work because at the end of the day, gold is still physical, and if the government wants to shut it down, they can easily shut it down because it was so
Yeah,
centralized, So it didn't work out.
right.
So you could say maybe lessons were learned there. I don't know for a fact whoever created Bitcoin took those lessons. I would imagine they did. I would imagine they would know about all this stuff because it's all related.
Yeah.
Okay. HashCash was pretty cool too. Um, it was created to prevent email spam. I thought it was a really inventive way to do it. So, in order to send an email, your machine had to do some work, and then it would send an email. So it would do some pointless computation, then it would send the email. That was the idea. Is that by doing that, you would reduce spam.
Well, why would that reduce spam?
Well, at least my understanding is if it's a spammer, um, and they're churning out a bunch of programmatically sent emails, they couldn't do that because their computer had to exert work to send each individual one.
Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying.
So
Okay.
it has to do like a 20-second computation in order to send an email. So if it
Right.
was
So basically, you couldn't send 100 emails in a second.
correct, yeah, exactly. So the idea was to reduce spam basically. The
Okay.
guy's name was Adam Beck. He was the creator. He wrote a paper on how to do this. To me, this was the first proof of work idea. Not necessarily. I mean, Ford's I think was kind of that way, but what I mean in terms of computers, it was proof that you did work to send something, to send an email. That's proof of work. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that proof of work is the mining idea for Bitcoin. So that nugget of valuable information is why the mining network works so well. Um, Microsoft apparently tried to implement HashCash to prevent spamming. I don't know if that ever really took off. I don't think it did. But Adam Beck also detailed in a paper how this could work for digital currencies as well before Bitcoin.
Okay.
So there's even speculation that Adam Beck is actually the creator of Bitcoin. I don't think that's true, but I have no idea.
Speculation.
Yeah, that he's the creator of Bitcoin.
Well, it is
The,
interesting. I mean, he had these ideas back in '97.
yeah, I mean, he definitely inspired whoever did create it.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to some Bitcoin guys say that Bitcoin was created by an alien.
Well, I don't think so.
And then and then the same guy says he said it was either an alien or somebody who came from the future.
For the future, maybe. That's more believable.
That's more believable.
I'm just kidding.
Well, technically, people from the future would be aliens too, wouldn't
And they'd be alien to us.
they? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They'd be aliens. They're not from this world.
Yeah.
They're from a different world.
Yeah, true.
But anyways, I think that laid some more groundwork for how the idea could blossom. Um, that proof of work idea is very fundamental to Bitcoin working and working well. You know, that whole virtuous cycle we talked about last week. Um, if you don't have miners, you don't have that work and that incentive, then you don't have that cycle where the price goes up, more miners get in, and also I think there's something to that's good about proof of work as well is it incentivizes innovation and energy production because the more productive your energy are, the more Bitcoin you can make. So, and by incentivizing better energy production, I think you're also helping the proliferation of renewables,
True.
which has never really been that mechanism in place before. Somebody was talking about, well, there's actually, I'm sorry to go off of a tangent here, but there's also this, I can't remember the country, but they're going to be using some energy source. It's somewhere, it's an African nation. They're going to be using an energy source to mine Bitcoin to help raise money. I thought was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that is neat.
I can't remember the country's name though. Okay, so I mean, I kind of go back over how it all relates. You know, you had Henry Ford. He measured currency or economic energy by literal energy, which was his idea, but he was going to convert it to dollars, which is not how this has turned out. We've done it through a different mechanism, which is Bitcoin. Um, Bitcoin deployed the idea of proof of work, which was created by HashCash, but HashCash didn't really take off, and it was really had a very pigeonholed idea just to prevent spam, and that's that's not that great. That's not that meaningful. But to be able to do it for currency, I think that's much more meaningful. And I think one thing to take away from this is decentralization is the key to Bitcoin's success. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
And also, don't you think the idea that who the hell is Satoshi Nakamoto? Who the fuck is that? Doesn't that kind of help too?
What do you mean? Like, because he's like a nobody and
Or we don't know who it is. Like, there's something I think that there's technically not a leader of Bitcoin. There's not somebody who made
right.
it. I feel like when there's somebody who made it, it makes it seem less legitimate in a way.